You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode 140, we will be discussing the latest in Overwatch esports, see what's buzzing in this week's hot community topics, and share our host rankings for the original 12 Overwatch League teams, which I'm sure is going to ruffle a few feathers based on where we put some of the teams. But before we can do that and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us tonight for our live show on Twitch, and of course, thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So, joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Edinar. Edinar, you know, the holidays are right around the corner, Winter Wonderland is in full swing, you know, we're feeling pretty festive, still trying to figure out what we're doing for the network, but, you know, there might be a little bit of talk about doing like a Christmas special, which could be any level of absurdity like people can conjure up. So we might have more details on that later in the week. But I need to know, like, how has your past week been?
Well, my past week has been actually a lot of fun. So as I've mentioned previously, I am going on vacation starting Saturday. I will be out of town for 12 days. 12 glorious days in Florida, not Disney World.
So, like, basically the 12 days of Christmas.
Yes.
That was not on purpose.
Random fact about Edinar. Random fact time. The more you know. So, born and raised in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Never seen a white Christmas in my life. I've never been in the state of Wisconsin for a Christmas. So, I like to keep that tradition alive by getting the hell out of this state every December 25th. So I've been getting ready for a lot of that, you know, packing, cleaning the house, doing errands, getting set up.
Mm-hmm.
Played a little bit of Overwatch. And the best news for last, I got a certain skin of a certain half Junkrat, half demon in the form of Krampus.
Nice, so you actually got it before your trip. Awesome.
I actually got Krampus, so I don't need to buy Krampus. Or forget to buy Krampus and then get real mad at myself. So I am very excited about that. Other than that, excited for the Hearthstone changes that came in. RIP Heroes, you know, all that fun stuff. How about you, man? How's your past week been?
It's been pretty productive, actually. We actually finished our placements on our accounts. I actually did placements on 2 accounts, so, you know, you and I were doing placements on our, like, healer/main tank accounts, so that would be my Totally Loopy account, and we ended up going 4 and 6. Those last two games were absolute a shit show, bar none, but I did actually end up placing 21-16. Now, when I compare that to, like, kind of how I was on my main account last season, which granted was only through placements, like, last season I was in gold on my main account when I was doing a lot of flexing, and this was my main tank account, basically learning how to play Reinhardt. So, to not see, like, a huge differential between the two, I was pretty happy with. But yeah, those last couple of games were extremely rough. So, to get everyone caught up to speed, basically you and I were playing on Rialto. And there, we were grouped with, like, this 3-stack that would just absolutely not shut the hell up. Like, you could tell that, you know, they were, you know, 6-8 drinks in at this point. I don't know how many. They were clearly drunk. But it was to the point where they just would not stop talking about things that had nothing to do with the competitive match that we were in. So much to the point where I actually had to leave team chat because I couldn't actually concentrate on what I was doing in the game. And I know that might not have been the best way to go about it, but if I'm not able to actually think what I need to be doing, then I'm not really going to be able to do that much as a main take. Needless to say, we still ended up losing, you know, much to our dismay, but those last 2 games were rough. So, you know, the 4-6 finish it is what it is. But 2116 I was happy with, especially since the majority of those games was on Reinhardt, who, as I mentioned in the past, is really, like, one of the heroes that I just haven't spent time on. To the point where, like, I was looking at my main account, and I only have, like, 5 hours of total Reinhardt play since the game came out. So that tells you how little I actually play Reinhardt. Most of those hours would probably just be on mystery heroes and not actual play. So in regards to my Totally Drunk account, I went 6-4. I ended up placing 2260. So, as I mentioned, last season I ended at 2199, and on that account, I actually flexed to every single role in my placements. I gotta play a little bit of Reinhardt, gotta play a little bit of Pharah, I even played some Zenyatta, some main support, some off-tank. I did a little bit of everything, so I was pretty happy with that, and, for the most part, I felt like I did pretty good, so to place higher was that much better, so not too much to complain about there, but, it's just been a whole lot of errands being run, obviously for the holidays. Christmas is right around the corner. Work has been, it hasn't been busy yet, because, the holiday isn't for, like, another week, so hopefully things will pick up there shortly. But that's enough IRL stuff. Let's talk about Overwatch. That's what we're here to talk about. Let's talk about a certain map that basically, everyone was snowed out from, as I mentioned last week, that being Blizzard World, and it is back officially after 2 days of being shut down completely. It's just like the South whenever they get, like, a speck of snow. They had to completely shut down the entire amusement park because they didn't have the equipment to kind of deal with that. So, Blizzard World is back into the game's map rotation. And again, like, what was happening was there was this bug that would keep players in the spawn room, while the opposite team was actually able to capture the first point. And during this time, the team that was trapped would basically be getting removed from the game because the game thought that they were inactive. So it was gone for 2 days, now it's back in, and I really love the tweet that the community service from Blizzard put out about this, because at the end, they basically said, we can't put a bug in for people not standing on the point/payload, though, so I thought that was a nice touch. But we've gotten a little bit more time to check out Blizzard World now that it's been, gotten the Christmas treatment. I want to get your thoughts on the map overall, because, like, when I first played Blizzard World, I was surprised by how dark it was. Like, I knew it was a night map, but I expected it to be a little bit more brighter just due to the amount of decorations and lighting overall, so it was really a bit of a surprise for me.
Yeah, I've played it once, so I'm just trying to go off of memory. But, like, yeah, it's more like if you've ever driven through, like, a nighttime light show, like drive through someone's neighborhood or drive through a park where they have just a light show up. That's what it's like. It's weird. It's hard to put it into words. It's kind of like almost King's Row. Like King's Row with the darkness to it. So I wish they would have gone more light and happy and whatever, but to each their own. I like it. I like when they do this, Christmassy stuff, Christmas decorations, and I like that they're doing a new map basically every time. So it's only a matter of time before we get, Christmas Ilios. And then you get lights adorning the well of death. Stuff like that. So I like the map. But like you said, it's a little dark.
I wonder, like, when Ilios does get the treatment, if there's just gonna be, like, ice on the bottom of the well. And then you just see, like, the splat. That'd be perfect.
Ice on the wall. So Lucio can't ride around the wall, inside the well.
I like it.
See, there we go.
Maybe just like a sign telling you not to fall in, things like that. But who knows? Maybe like the Orisa emote puppy can just, come in and save the day like Lassie. You never know.
But then the puppy would fall to his death.
This is also true. I really didn't think this through. Whatever, we're moving on.
You're trying to kill puppies, Totem. What's wrong with you?
I mean, Someone probably tried to take my cookies, just like in Cookie Watch, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. We do have a new update that hit the PTR. Really not a whole lot going on right now in regards to the public test room, outside of a couple bug fixes. And of course, there is also the Overwatch League expansion team skins. So this patch was deployed on Friday, December 14th, and this is our first look at all the new skins that we'll be able to get for the 2019 season, both home and away skins. So we have 29 heroes currently in the pool, so that means we have 464 skins added all together. And with the expansion skins, once they get added to the live servers, when it does get patched through, we'd be up to 1,160 skins just for the Overwatch League. So, looking at these skins, I'm sure you're going to be a little bit biased towards a certain pink and blue. Maybe. But out of the lot of these 8, which one do you feel is the standout, or, maybe a couple that stand out against, the pack?
So 3 actually stood out to me. 1, obviously, Finger Bangs.
Mm-hmm.
I like Finger Bangs. I can't decide if I like the home or away better, because I actually like the away skins for the Spark. But outside of them, Atlanta's, I actually really like Atlanta's. I think they did the red and black 10 times better than Toronto. And the Vancouver Titans. It's just, they did very good on the color scheme, on the tone of the blue and the green. Neither one is too... When you get green and blue, you can get depressing shades of it. And they didn't go for that depressing shade of blue or depressing hey, let's have forest green. No, let's not go forest green. So I like the Vancouver Titans and the Spark are probably the top 2. And then Atlanta is probably the next one. But yeah, those are 2. But like you said, they're introducing 400 plus new skins. They better up the drop rate on Twitch for the Overwatch League tokens at this rate. Because otherwise, eventually it's just going to get out of hand, and it's going to be, oh, do you want all the skins? Sure, give me $5,000. So.
Well, that's the you don't need all of the skins.
But I want them.
Well, you better fork out the money for them then. For me, the Atlanta Reign and the Guangzhou Charge ones are my favorite out of the lot.
Gatorade? You like the Gatorade one?
I really like the blue on blue look, which is really good in my mind. I really like the teal colors of that one. Really, the only one that I wasn't really a fan of was the Paris skin, just because it's just... There's way too much going on with Paris in regards to the overall color scheme. Mm-hmm. I will say, though, the Chengdu Hunters one did not look as bad as I was expecting it to, because I thought that, that gold and yellowish hues to that would be very, a little bit too vibrant and bright, kind of like how I feel about the Florida Mayhem skin. That was not the case, so I was happy with that overall. But, with the away skins, I feel like the darker skin, the darker colors for the skins look a little bit better than some of the more, brighter colors. But I was a fan of the Spark skin for the away. But all across the board, I really like to charge both home and away. For Vancouver, though, I'm kind of on the fence. It's not as good as pink and blue, but I can't complain too much because I finally did get my t-shirt that was shipped via Moose. It took 8 days.
Yes.
8 days. Jeez.
That's
So, okay.
That's 2 Canadian days.
I just want to point out something really quick to our Canadian listeners. No one mentioned to me that there was a strike with the Canadian Post Office Service. Apparently that's an ongoing thing, and no one even mentioned it to me, so shame on you Canadians for not...
What are they striking about? They have free healthcare.
I don't know. I found out from another Canadian Blizzard gamer friend of mine, and I was like, huh. You don't say. This is good to know now, because I was like, what's taking so long? Normally it's supposed to ship in 3 to 5 days, and it was over a week.
Like, do they want the government to pay them to go to the hospital? Like, is that the next step for Canada? Like, you get paid to go see a doctor.
I have no
'Cause it
idea.
could happen. They need more maple syrup.
That's clearly what it is. But I will say, like, you can see the colors. Looks good.
Yes.
I'm a fan of the green and blue. I don't know if
I'm waiting for the Spark to come out with
their merch.
Their merch.
Did you see that they did post their jersey sneak preview?
Yep, they did. Yeah, they did post that, and I thought that was like, oh, are they gonna have it up in the next day or two? And then I'm like, oh,
Nope. They're leading you on.
All right, first, I'm gonna say this right now: massive mistake by Blizzard, by Overwatch League. How do you not have all the new expansion merch out and available before Christmas? Like, you're missing out on massive sales because you just don't have it out there. You know, you release it after Christmas, you're not going to get as much. So, just stupid.
They'll
like,
tie it in with the preseason.
But even then, you're just like, you're missing out on so much. So that's, yeah.
Yeah.
But the away skins, like, I will say this, the away skins, I scrolled through them. They could have picked a better, like, from what, like, I'm looking at now on the .esports, Reaper is not the best model for away skins. Because I'm just scrolling through, I'm like, I'm not seeing much of a difference here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see a slight difference here and there, but it's one of those things where I think D.Va would have been the best to show the away skins, because D.Va looks the best in any of the away skins I've seen. For whether it's Soul Dynasty, I love D.Va's Soul Dynasty away skin. I love D.Va's away Spark skin. So I don't know. That's just my personal preference.
I feel like between all the characters, D.Va and Ashe are probably the two best ones to kind of get a look of, because with Bob in the background, you get a very good look at, you know, a fuller scale, just because of the way that his skin is in the game. So definitely go check out the PTR, see which ones you like. Maybe, you know, you'll have an idea of what ones you'll get as soon as the skins are available on live servers. But we do have some merchandise news in regards to the Figma figures, which again is part of the Good Smile company. So the next hero in the Figma line is none other than the Rocket Queen herself, Pharah, and this figure is available to pre-order right now. So this is a 6-inch figure which costs $90. My heart sank when I saw that. Like, I was hoping it might have been more in line. Nope, it's more expensive. Feels bad, man. But it does include a number of different accessories. Of course, you got the rocket launcher. I mean, you kind of have to. It's Pharah. You do have the shoulder parts, which will actually open up so it can display her barrage ability. You have two different heads, one with her helmet on, one without the helmet, which has, you know, her hair. And the Pharah is expected to be out by the end of Q4 of 2019. So this is going to be another one of those scenes that if I go to pre-order it, I'm going to completely forget about it, and then I'm going to get a random box from Blizzard to be like, what the heck is this? Then it'll be this.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool and all, but, all right, like you said, $90.
Mm-hmm.
When the rest are 80, 70, 80, right around in that range. You don't get it for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't get being able to pre-order a toy or an action figure. Sorry, don't come at me. And then it not being available for like at least a year. Like, it baffles me. Like, don't offer a pre-order for something a year away that is just an action figure.
Especially when you have to pay up front.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's a situation where it just gives them an idea of how many units they need to produce, where they don't want to just be making an overabundance of stock and then being stuck with it.
But even then, you could undercut it.
Right.
And then sell a bunch, and then if a bunch of people pre-ordered it over what they had, then you can just be like, it's on back order.
Mm-hmm.
and then you can make adjustments accordingly. And you have a rough idea of what people are going to order because it's not like these are the first ones. I mean, they have a Widowmaker, Tracer, Reaper, Diva, Genji, Zenyatta. Like, you have a rough estimate of what sales are going to be. So at this point, it's kind of ridiculous.
I can kind of give them a pass for like the statues just because of the level of, you know, just the design of it and the intricacies of the painting and the modeling and all of that. So it takes them, you know, a substantial amount of time to actually get each one because it is handcrafted. But for a figure like this, I don't know what like the time frame is in regards to the actual production of it, so I don't know like how those two would necessarily compare to one another. I can't imagine that the Figma figures take anywhere near as long as one of the statues to, you know, hit the shelves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you're making, I assume they're making a decent amount of these. Like, it's not like they're only going to sell 100 of these, because otherwise they just stop making them. You have a mold for this. You have a mold for all of these. Like, that's just how manufacturing works. Like, you have a mold for this. You keep filling that mold. Once you have the mold, it's generally pretty easy to just kind of mass produce them. Like, you fill the mold, let it cool down, you assemble it. Like, me and you together could probably pump out 100 a day. Just the two of us, if we had the mold constantly being filled with stuff. Like, this just baffles my mind, like, on how all of this works. Because it's coming from an actual toy company, too. Mm-hmm. So are all the other, you know, action figures they make, are they a year down the line? Like, no, they're not. So, I don't know. There's got to be something behind the scenes we're just not seeing. But I'm not ordering it.
Yeah,
Spider's probably ordered 2.
One for the office and one for the house.
Exactly.
That would not surprise me one bit. I don't know. Maybe there's something nefarious going on behind the scenes. Just like there was in Cookie Watch, because I don't know like how many people have actually seen Cookie Watch yet, but we now 100% know why Santa never visits Reaper's house, and that's because Reaper always tries to steal the cookies.
And shoot Tracer.
That too. And ornaments, for that matter, and the Christmas tree, all that good stuff. So Overwatch just released a new stop-motion animation just in time for the holidays, which features Tracer and Reaper, as Tracer tries to make sure that Reaper doesn't steal Santa's cookies. Now, these two were previously in a stop-motion animation together for the game's 2nd anniversary. That was back in May. And I have to say, like, this was actually pretty entertaining. It's only, like, 2.5 minutes long, and there is quite a bit of voice line potential to maybe cross over into the game. My favorite part, though, was when Reaper is trying to basically get the upper hand, and he uses a candy cane to basically, like, hook and like clothesline Tracer to secure the cookies. Only for Tracer to recall out of that situation, so she has the cookies back in her possession. And of course, you know, you had to get a appearance by Santa, who drops off a gift which contains another figure, which also happens to be Doomfist, and you know, you see him come in with his meteor strike, basically destroys a plate that the cookies were on, and then you have the closing moment of Reaper opening up a gift that was from Santa that contains a cookie as a gift. So despite all of, you know, the shadiness of Reaper and how edgy he wants to be, trying to steal everyone's cookies, you know, he at the end of the day, he still got what he was going for. He just didn't get as much as he initially wanted, because he only got 1 cookie as opposed to the 2 or 3 that were left out.
Well, I will say this. It was absolutely one of the most adorable things they've ever come out with, and I loved every minute of it. But I wouldn't be me if I didn't have at least one criticism. How the hell does Reaper open presents? So when he opens a present from Santa, he literally is just ripping the top off the box.
Right?
Who just rips open a box from the top? No, you take off the wrapping paper, then you open the box from the side. You don't just rip off the top. Get it together, Reaper. Baffling. No, they did miss a good opportunity, too. Is that one that was wrapped? The Doomfist that was wrapped? Because they've already announced a Doomfist statue, haven't they?
They have, yes.
They could have done, it could have been a subtle announcement of the next statue.
Right.
Like, have, like, a different character. Winston, someone like that, come out and then drop into, like, his pose that he'll be on the statue. That would have been cool. But who knows if they have the next one, like, fully figured out yet. So, I don't know. They may just come out with it, and then you pre-order it, and then you get it in, a year and 2 years. So, the way things work with toys, or action figures. Sorry, action figures. But I love this. We get to see cheesy stuff like this and fall in love with cheesy stuff like this once a year. And I do it every time.
The only thing that I didn't understand is we see like the Soldier 76 statue in the background. He doesn't come to life. There's some inconsistencies here with who's actually, in these stop motion animation movies.
Yeah. What the hell? Like, is Soldier 76 dead? Like, is Andy there?
Maybe that's a problem. He didn't have a name written underneath his boot.
I had to work in a Toy Story reference at least once.
Or Small Soldiers, either one works.
See, that could have been a nice Easter egg where, like, you have, like, toy soldiers hanging from the tree.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been a good one.
Or a barrel of monkeys. Whichever.
Yeah, come on, Blizzard. Should have brought me in.
I mean, we're always comparing Blizzard animations to Pixar. I mean, they could have done something. But anyways, that is enough about Cookie Watch. Go watch it. It's 2.5 minutes. Doesn't take a whole lot of time. Let's jump into this week's hot community topics. And first, let's talk about a certain hero that seems to be gaining a lot of attention for some reason. I don't know if you're on the same fence as me with this, but there's a new hashtag movement going on after the Delete Brig movement, and that is to rework Mercy. So we saw the Delete Brig movement kind of play out. Brigitte is still in the game. She's not completely gone. She's not retired, not deleted, anything like that. But we did see some pretty recent changes to her toolkit, specifically revolving around her Shield Bash stun and the damage it does. And of course, they made her a little bit more healer-friendly as well, because they buffed her Inspire passive. So will this have the same effect on Mercy? That remains to be seen. But what I will say is, when you look at all the stuff that the community is talking about right now with Mercy, no one can seem to agree on anything. There are a lot of people that are like, oh, well, her gameplay right now is pretty boring. But a lot of people feel like right now, Mercy, balance-wise, is in the best state that she has been maybe ever since the game came out. So Mercy is, I'll say, like, right now she's in kind of like this precarious situation where she's meant to be a main healer, but she just does not match the same healing throughput as other main healers like Ana and Moira, both of whom can actually deal a fair amount of damage as well. And this whole thing basically started from a YouTuber, Aria Rose, and she's gone out and created this spreadsheet where people can actually submit rework propositions in regards to Mercy. Last I checked, they had over 100 submissions thus far. And there's quite a bit going on here. I didn't read through all of them, obviously, because that would take way too much time. I know some people were trying to rework Resurrect back as an ultimate, maybe just capping it at, like, 3, so it's not, like, a full, like, party Resurrect. We saw things where maybe they combine both of her beams together as an ability, so you get both the healing boost and the damage boost at the same time. But you have to be careful not to cross the streams in that instance.
Well played.
There's also like having like a protective bubble whenever you use your ultimate. so you can actually resurrect. Because, when you go for the resurrect, that does leave Mercy pretty vulnerable overall. So, Ed, I don't know if you read through any of these, but I really want to get your thoughts on Mercy in her current state. Do you feel like she is balanced? And where do you think this uproar is really stemming from at this point?
Okay, so let me go get my soapbox real quick. And apologize for starters to Mercy Mains and Melorina. Because when I was on OWL Recap, we got into it a little bit over this Mercy rework. So here's the thing with Mercy. For her to be balanced, because she is the most balanced that she's ever been right now. For her to be balanced, she has to be underpowered. And the reason for that is her res ability. Her res ability forces her other abilities to be undertuned compared to all the other healers. Because if her healing output was the same as, a Moira, Ana, and stuff like that, and then you add the res on top of it, Mercy now becomes the mandatory pick again. And that's the problem you started to run into in the majority of Season 1 of the OWL. Like, that ability is the most broken ability in any first-person shooter game, period. The ability to res a dead ally is massive. And to have it on, like, what is it, a 24-second cooldown? I think it's 24 seconds, something like that. But just the simple fact that it's on a cooldown to res someone is ridiculous. Like, I personally think her res needs to go back to some form of her ultimate. And then you can balance it around that. I think the problem a lot of people have with her now is she's just boring. Like, she's straight up just a boring character to play. Because all you're really doing is you're standing there and you're standing behind a wall or... Right. And
she's just a buff bot, essentially.
Exactly. Like, and people want more to do, and they want her to be engaged. So you have the Moira who can pump out damage. You have the Ana who can also do damage and heal at the same time. Mercy, while she has her pistol, is not going to pull out her pistol in the middle of a fight. It's just not something she's going to do. She has to heal. She has to damage boost. Her damage boosting can do more damage than her pistol can. So it's just stupid for her to use that. But I think that's what it boils down to is people are just bored playing her, but they can't bump up. Characters don't get bored when they're overpowered because you're overpowered. I think the perfect example for this for me was in World of Warcraft, mages. So mages, for the longest time, they're more complicated now, but I'm talking like Kata, Mr. Pandaria, stuff like that. 2 buttons. Most boring spec to play in the game, but they topped every chart. So people loved playing them. Like, they weren't doing anything. They were just hitting 2 buttons and beating everyone. That's what I kind of compare Mercy to. It's just like, or the old Mercy, or the Mercy what people want is they want her to be overpowered with the kit she has, or completely redo the whole kit. Now, how she does that, like you said, don't know how they can actually make her interactive. I don't think a bubble, you already have a bubble in the game. You have a Zarya bubble. You can do a Winston bubble. I don't like that. Anyone who says she needs some form of CC can go to hell. Like, I'm sorry, the last thing this game needs is some form of CC. I guess I don't know how you can make her more interactive with the fights to make her feel more useful. Like, give her a damage ability, but what damage ability would she really have? Like, the only thing I can think of, and this is just me, is there's a priest ability in WoW called Halo, where it shoots out like a ring, like starting at her and going outwards all around, and it heals and does damage at the same time.
It's kind of like a shockwave.
Yeah, it's like a shockwave. So you could do something like that on like a long cooldown, because it would heal your allies and damage opponents That's a pretty big thing in a 360-degree circle. Put it on, a 12, 14 second cooldown and have her do that. So at least she feels like she's contributing. Now, I'm not saying she's not contributing, but when you're standing there holding left click on, one of your tanks or left click on one of your DPS or whatever, you don't feel like you're participating all that much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they need to change, but they can't change any of that unless they change res. Would I be upset if they flat out just took res out of the game? Nope. I think you can never fully balance Mercy until you do take res out of the game.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. With Resurrect, that's basically just part of her lore. So I don't know how I would feel about them just being like, you know what? Something happened on a battlefield and she's suffering from amnesia, she just doesn't know how to do it anymore.
Like, they could do something with her ult where she can do a mass res. But
maybe they base it on, like, her beam targets? Like, maybe, like, you do, like, so much healing or damage boost, and then you could... The more you do with that, the more people that you can res.
I was thinking more along the lines of... Because the last thing you don't want to have the Mercy who hides in a corner.
Right.
Waiting for the fight to end. I would say a Mercy ultimate res, a mass res, that has to be in line of sight. Like, the bodies have to be in line of sight. So that way she can't just hide and res people. Like, she has to be in the fight and get a mass res off without dying. So I that's just one thought. But I think they need to start by putting her res back on an ultimate. Because right now her ultimate is... It's okay. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely weaker than a lot of ultimates for supports. So I don't know. They need to make her more engaging is what they really need to do.
I remember one of the other suggestions that someone had in regard to, like, bringing in, one form of mass res back was the lower number of people that you resed in the instance, like the higher HP they would have when they're resurrected. So if you res one person, they'd basically be back at full health or whatever. But if you res like 3, they'd only have a percentage of their health after being res, and then it would just scale based on that number, which I thought was interesting. But you don't want to get back to the point where everyone feels like they're playing hide and seek, because a lot of people didn't like that play style of Mercy. So I don't know. She's just in this weird spot where if you're someone that doesn't play Mercy, you really don't know the play style. But if you play Mercy, like, a lot of people will kind of feel like something needs to be done. Like, I do play Mercy as my main support, and well, it's definitely not the most active playstyle, and you do feel like you're just there to solely buff the DPS, or, heal the main tank, and that's basically it. It's really hard to kind of feel that the impact that you're actually having in the game, whereas if you're playing Moira or Ana, like, at least you're able to deal the damage, or maybe you can deal with the Pharah that's in the sky, or sleep a Dragon Blade and Genji, things like that. So the overall active time, just because you're shooting or dealing damage, feels a lot higher just due to the fact that you are using other abilities and not just holding, mouse 1 or mouse 2. Like, I don't know. She's in a weird spot, but, like, I'm not gonna say she's to the point where we absolutely need to do something, just due to the fact that she is balanced right now. And I don't think you can just continue this trend of saying, well, it's not fun. There's nothing wrong with it, but let's just change it up anyway. So I don't know what the answer is going to be. This might, something like this might spark conversation with the devs. I can't imagine something really coming from this like the Brig movement did.
Yeah, like, I will say this, flat out, the supports are in the most balanced as a whole as we've ever seen in the game.
Yes.
Like, and it's not even close. And if I was a developer and I look at the state of all the supports, I'm not touching them for a while because they're just so well balanced.
And if you were to touch one, the likeliest person would probably be Zenyatta.
Probably, like, honestly, you'd probably reduce the damage and increase the healing on Zenyatta. That's the only thing, like,
or
really
lowering the debuff for his orb.
Discord. Yeah.
Like
Zenyatta would probably get tweaks first, and tweaks are different than reworks.
Mm-hmm.
Like tweaking the damage output or the debuff abilities, that's totally different. But supports are in the best spot they've ever been in. Tanks are they're in a spot, and
some better than others.
Yeah, and damage is just a complete mess. Like DPS characters, across the board is just like a giant shit show. Like mainly because
everyone's playing tanks and supports.
Exactly. Like when you I think I touched on this last week. Like, hey, all these DPS players are getting signed. Oh, who's going to be the best DPS line? But then you're like, well, actually, no DPS line is going to be good because there's no DPS being run, because DPS is trash against what? Goats, basically. And it's just a lot of other things need to happen to make the game better before rework Mercy is viable. So I think it's a hot topic, but I think it's unrealistic to think that actually anything will happen with Mercy of any significance, that is. So that's my 2 cents on all this.
Moving on, there has been quite a bit of discussion about incoming suspensions for the Overwatch League. This basically all stemmed from a tweet sent out from Overwatch writer Yiska, who you can basically find every week on Tactical Crouch. And he basically said, expect a sizable amount of suspensions soon. So if the past is any indicator, this has to be revolving around boosting leading to player suspensions. So during this offseason, we have seen a number of contenders players getting signed to the Overwatch League, and boosting is most prevalent in the Tier 2 scene and lower. It's even gotten to the point where even Boston terminated a contract of one of the players that they signed during the offseason, which this was something that we were going to discuss, but we didn't have the full details until after one of the shows. So Boston Uprising recently terminated a contract of Funny Astro after the Overwatch League found out that he had boosted in the past. And there's also been some recent news out of Korea in regards to boosting that I did want to bring up again. And that is that there is a recent amendment that was passed in Korea's National Assembly that can charge players found guilty of boosting with a 2-year suspended prison sentence and a fine of up to $18,000. So, boosting and Overwatch League, no strangers to one another. Sato from the Philadelphia Fusion was out for 30 games. OG had a 4-game suspension for the Dallas Fuel. And there's a number of sign-ins during this offseason, like BQB from the Florida Mayhem, who promoted boosting services when he was on X6 Gaming. At the time, X6 Gaming was the org that basically handed the suspension to him, to the point where he didn't play an entire season. Now it's a curious situation of, well, is that going to be still punishable by Overwatch League because it wasn't handed out by them? Because they are making a habit of kind of going back and trying to see, okay, who has this sort of background in their competitive gaming history. He would not be the only one. There's a couple of other people that come to mind. DeFran would be another one. DeFran was also someone that he technically already served a suspension from Blizzard, but it wasn't league specific. So I don't know how exactly they're to go about doing this, if they're going to be kind of on the chopping block in regards to getting a suspension, or if they are free. But either way, there is a very good chance that things could be getting shaken up quite a bit in the upcoming month ahead.
Yeah, I would expect when they said sizable amount of suspensions, I can see 6 suspension, mainly from the new teams, like the expansion teams, because most of the actual Overwatch League teams have set rosters. If they're in the Overwatch League, they're not boosting. They're not like in the off season between season 1 and 2 boosting accounts. They know what happens. It's like you said, it's these tier 2, tier 3 players that are getting paid anything really, and they're using it as a side job. So I'll be interested to see who gets suspended. I think they listed one as a rumor is Happy from My Poor Spark, possibly. I mean, if they go back and punish people who had been like accused and caught boosting, I mean, Defran is number 1 on the list. Like I said, I'm still 50-50. He makes it to week 1. So that'll be interesting. On a side note, I don't get what the big deal is. Like literally, I don't get what the deal is about. If it was truly a problem, like yes, you're paying somebody to level an account and give it to you. How is that any different than in World of Warcraft? Selling raid runs happens all the time, not punishable. Stuff like that. Boosting is in every game in one way or another. It's pay to win. Name me a game that isn't really pay to win. And what do you win by having a higher rank in comp matches? More golden guns?
The only funny thing is, like, let's say you do boost and you're the person that is getting this account, you'll at least stay there because of how the SR system works. Like, you're really not going to drop just because you're always going to place around the same thing because you were boosted.
Exactly. Like, yeah, it sucks for the other people on your team, but I honestly, like, I'm also a person who in like professional sports like baseball, football, basketball, why can't we let them use steroids? At least ones that are legal. Like let them use legal steroids. It makes the game more interesting to watch. So I don't know. I know I'm in the minority on all this, but I'm like, I don't see the big deal with boosting.
What I will say is, if this is going to be something that happens every year, I feel like they just need to have a certain date set in place where if someone is found guilty of boosting, at X date and beyond, then they hand out the suspension. I don't want this to be something where they're looking 3-4 years back and then being like, oh, well, when you first got started in the Path to Pro scene, you did this. No, I don't think it should be to that point. But at the end of the day, a lot of these players that are doing this, that are in Tier 2, Tier 3, whatever, a lot of these players aren't contracted to an org. There's really not a lot of money in it. Some are coming from regions that only get Blizzard bucks. You have kids that are probably skipping school, which you shouldn't do, one. You have kids that just don't have a job and are just trying to make this a full-time thing, but they're just not seeing any income come in through it. So it kind of just leads them down this path where they really don't have an option outside of boosted, which is like, it's really the only way for them to get any sort of revenue outside of just getting a job. But if they're looking at being a pro, and if they're spending all of their time playing Overwatch anyway, of course that's going to be the route that they're going to take. So it's more, I feel like, financial security than anything is the reason why people are going down this path. But if so many people are doing it, it just shows, like, there's not enough money for these, Tier 2, Tier 3 talents to make a living off of playing the game competitively.
Yeah, no, if Overwatch League really wants to crack down on boosting, support the Tier 2 and Tier 3 like leagues better. Up the amount of money. Like, allow them to actually pay their players in stuff other than Blizzard bucks. Like, hey, I know you can't pay for food this week, but here's money to buy 50 loot crates.
Not in some cases, it's not even that. It's like here's $25 of BlizzBucks.
Like, it's a touchy subject when it comes to that, but yeah, like it's mainly a financial thing. Like they want you to practice 12 hours a day, but they're not going to pay you. Like, okay, what am I going to do to make money? I know I'll get paid to do this. What I'm already doing is playing Overwatch. So yeah, they're never going to get rid of boosting. I agree with you that they should have like a set date to announce it, or even because all these Overwatch League teams have to submit players for approval. How about when they submit the players for approval, don't just approve them and then wait to suspend them. Be like, hey, like with Atlanta, go back with Dafran. Be like, hey, we're approving Dafran, but we're suspending him 4 games for boosting. And then you release a statement saying that. Right. You don't wait a couple months to announce that you're suspending Dafran. Like, and I'm not saying Dafran's getting suspended. It's just a high probability. And announce it when they're, when they go for approval. Like, it makes the most sense to do that. Come on, Nate Nanzer. Don't drop the ball.
Just like with Fantasy Overwatch League. Where's our update? We need it.
I still baffles me. They have not jumped on the fantasy bandwagon. Like fantasy sports, fantasy football is bigger than actual football. I don't even, like, you can argue with me about that, but you're right.
I'm not going to.
Like anyone can argue with me about that, and you're just dead wrong. Like, fantasy football is bigger than actual football. Why not try and get the fantasy Overwatch League? Because gambling is massive now that it's legal on sports. Get ahead of the game on fantasy Overwatch and gambling on Overwatch. Because it will be legal. It's legal in the United States. I know it's probably legal in most of Asia. So it's like, why not get ahead of the game and make a little extra money? Could you not use that little cushion in case you have a down year? That's a topic for a whole nother.
Yeah, that could be a safety net.
Yeah, it could be a safety net. And, as future Overwatch League fantasy podcasters, we would enjoy it too.
And that's what really matters at the end of the day. Allow us to produce even more content, because that's what we want to do. Moving on, though, let's talk a little bit about competitive Overwatch as we go inside the Path to Pro scene and the Overwatch League. So again, just a reminder, we do record Wednesday nights, which is also one of the Contenders North America nights. So we're going to look back at last Wednesday night's games really quick and talk about what went down in week 4, day 1, which would be Tuesday of this current week. So Adonar, what has gone down in regards to the results for this past week worth of games?
All right, so last week, day 2, when we were recording, it was NRG Esports defeated Gladiators Legion 2-1. XL2 Academy defeated Skyfoxes 4-0. Shocker. Second Wind defeated Team Envy 3-1, which was... Second Wind is really coming on, to take down the Team Envy, Dallas Fuel team is nice for them.
They did more than that, but which I'll talk about in a minute.
And then when you get to this one, we had LNL. I refuse to call them Atlanta Academy. They're LNL. Defeated First Generation to celebrate Sugar Free's 14th birthday. 4 more years, Sugar Free. 4 more
years and he's out of jail.
Yes. And then Uprising Academy defeated Garner 3-1. And then Fusion University reverse swept Mayhem Academy 3-2. You heard that correct. Fusion University had to reverse sweep the Mayhem Academy.
But it's not so much that they went to 5-game. That's a surprise. It's the fact that it was against Mayhem Academy of all teams. But, Philadelphia Fusion, including their affiliate team, are just known for going to 5 maps. Like, that's just Philadelphia spirit in regards to their overall grit and toughness. But anyways, tonight's matches, we have Second Wind versus XL2 Academy, which, spoilers, XL2 Academy lost 3, and it was a score of 3-2. Second Wind won, and with that, they finished in the top of Group B for North America.
Wow.
So we also have Team Envy versus NRG Esports tonight, and then to cap off the week, we have Sky Foxes versus Gladiators Legion. So, just a quick update on playoff situations right now for North America. We do know that First Generation and Second Wind, both non-Academy teams, will be in the playoffs. So as of right now, we have Atlanta Academy, Fusion University, both 4-0. Atlanta Academy currently has the best record in regards to maps at 14-2-0. Then we have First Generation and Uprising Academy, both advancing in Group A. And I do want to point out that Klaus is soon to be North America bound for Uprising Academy, so there's a very good chance he won't have to be dealing with such absurd pain in the playoffs, which I'm really excited to see. And then, so far in Group B, Second Wind and XL2 Academy both have advanced, and Energy Esports should advance, so it's really up to Gladiators Legion to secure their spot.
Mm-hmm. I'm most excited, and I said this to you earlier, about Second Wind. Mm-hmm. I think they could really do something. I like seeing these non-Overwatch League teams. Like last year, we fell in love with LNL, not just because of Sugar Free, but because they're a non-affiliated team.
Right. They're unsigned,
knocking people out. Yeah, and Second Wind is a non-affiliated team who's top of their group, like taking down XL2,
who are favorites to win the whole thing again.
Exactly. And I will say this: Second Wind and the Windy City, could work.
It might, but who knows?
But
will they have the same effect? Is this a surefire sign that someone's gonna pick up Second Wind? I think it's a little bit too early to tell, just because LNL was around a little bit longer.
Yeah, but I mean, you have two, affiliate teams not making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, that doesn't mean crap, because they're guaranteed spots next year, which is not getting on that soapbox. But Team Envy and Mayhem Academy are knocked out, and that's huge.
Right.
I mean, especially because, if you would have come up to me and been like, where's Mayhem Academy going to rank in Group A for contenders, I would have told you third. Behind Fusion and LNL. But nope, they take fifth, miss playoffs. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out, especially with Group A looking so dominant.
We do want to touch up on that Fusion University versus Mayhem Academy match really quick. We're not going to do map-by-map analysis.
No.
But there were definitely some things that we do want to note. So, in regards to the Zenyatta battle between Alarm from Fusion University and Epps from Mayhem Academy, that was definitely very one-sided. Alarm consistently felt like he was 20% ahead in regards to ult charge over Epps. And of course, it's Alarm, so Alarm has just naturally always been the fragger Zenyatta. And there's really no doubt in my mind that once Alarm is in the Overwatch League, he's going to be another one of those standout flex supports, because he is absolutely ridiculous. We did get to see an interesting composition from Fusion University on Ilios Well, where we saw McCree and Hanzo paired with Orisa. I thought that was pretty interesting. really didn't go so well. They basically invested support ults in a losing fight, which ended up just prolonging the fight, and it didn't give them enough time to re-engage. So that was kind of like a feels bad man moment. And Hanamura was pretty exciting. Like, we were really starting to see a lot more Mei on defense on Hanamura to wall off that choke point. So in this particular match, both of the attackers were using dive tanks paired with Pharah and Hanzo to try to counter that and just go through the window or, above the wall, whatever. But there was one moment in regards to Fact Fiction that I need to talk about, and it was on Route 66. So Fact Fiction is pushing forward. He has a Zarya right in front of him, so he's like, you know what? Now's a good time to hit the Earth Shatter. Zarya has her barrier up, and it's completely negated. And that was just, oof. Like, that hurts my soul. Like, I felt it. Like, it sank. Like, I felt like I had an out-of-body experience to the point where I'm like, I just didn't know what to say in that moment. Like, why? Like, I don't understand it. What you and I both noted, though, was, in regards to Mayhem, there was a very distinct turnaround of Mayhem Academy, at least at the start of this series. Last week, when we talked about Mayhem Academy, their support line had a whole ton of feeding issues. They did not start that way in this series when they went up 2-0, and then momentum shifted, and they reverted back to their old ways. And they have this issue where whenever someone isn't playing the meta, and maybe they're playing non-triple tank, triple support, they really don't know how to deal with that at all. There were times where they tried to, like, hack down, like, a Pharah in the sky. That didn't really work. There was a lot of times where they were a little bit too tentative with their engages. And with Route 66, there was a pretty good play at the very end to really stall in overtime by Neist, who was on Tracer at the time, and he was just not dying at all, which allowed Fusion University to get back. Alarm had a late Transcendence, kept the team alive, and he frags out, which opened up the door to force that map 5. But all in all, like, Fusion University this season, regardless of what the record is, like, they're still winning matches, but they have had a lot of problems with positioning, and they're just taking a lot of unnecessary poke damage before they initiate these fights. And if there's a season where they're not going to win the championship, it's going to be this one. They're not going to be able to, like, keep escaping, like, the grasp of death of a loss, basically. It's been too many close calls this season, and you can't feel super confident in them going into the playoffs, just knowing that they've been taken to the limit by some of the lesser organized teams, for that matter.
Yeah, no, like, Fusion Universe, 100%. And this is not even, like, Mayhem Academy was playing awesome. The first 2 maps they won, like you said, it was goats v goats. They knew what to do. Outside of the one map on Ilios where they played McCree, they knew how to handle it. They won. They won because, unlike last week when we talked about Mayhem Academy, they actually had good ult usage. They didn't just spam it like Oprah handing out cards. Like, they actually were using good ult management. Fusion University should not have won this map, this series, hands down. They should have lost on Route 66. They should have lost on Nepal. Like, I mean, all they had to do was switch off goats, and Mayhem just no idea how to, like, it's like the high ground doesn't exist to them, and they don't know how to do anything about it. I mean, they were running Pharah versus, and Mayhem had a D.Va, and D.Va wasn't doing anything to deal with it. Like, it was just sloppy play by Mayhem, and they still were taking Fusion University to the brink. Like, Route 66, 6v Tracer. It should be the easiest win ever. They're in overtime, and there's a Tracer on point, and you have 6 people on the point. How do you not kill the Tracer
Yeah, in like a 15-second window, basically.
Yeah, like it's not like, oh, she held it for like 2-3 seconds and the team showed up. No, she was like, it was like that. Remember when the Mayhem and Tavik was sitting on the point at the end of Watch Point Gibraltar at some point last season? It was kind of like that, just and then Hamster comes in, then Alarm comes in, and it's just like you guys had Fusion University losing 3-1, and you just couldn't hold out. Like Fusion University got lucky from probably bad communication and just bad play by Mayhem Academy, and I don't think that Fusion University is going to do well in the playoffs. A couple of things about this. This particular matchup, this was real piss poor Reinhardt play from both teams. There were the shatters were not good. I'm going to solo charge into the team behind enemy lines by myself. There was a lot of that. It was bad Reinhardt play from Change Thick and from Fact Fiction. You even pointed out it's a little different seeing Beast Halo and seeing Change Thick on the main tank. Like Fusion University's biggest issue right now, I think, is their tank line. I can't comment on their DPS line because we don't see a DPS line because they're just running goats. But their tank line is not the best.
Yeah, I feel like their defense Zarya has been fine. It's basically just been the main tank spot.
But that's the biggest part about goats.
Exactly.
Your main tank has to be the best part of your team to make goats truly shine, and that's the weakest part of their team. Fact Fiction is just playing for Mayhem is just playing like he's doing quick play against a bunch of noobs and this stuff's gonna work. No, Fact Fiction, it's not gonna work. You can't get super aggro as a Reinhardt in these matchups, goats v goats, because it's so easy for the rest of your team to get cut off and you're just left there to die. And you saw that from Fact Fiction. So it was just sloppy play all around from them. The Epps versus Alarm duo, like a duel, if you can call it a duel. it was Alarm showing Epps. I was actually pleasantly surprised because last week we kind of tore into Paintbrush a little on his Lucio play. It wasn't as bad this time around. Wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad. And then you got to see a lot of Snillo and, mainly Snillo on actual DPS characters. So it was interesting. Fusion should not have won this.
No.
They just shouldn't have. They lucked out.
There's been a lot of question marks about Fusion University, even like going into the contender season when it comes to their roster. We're like, where's Beast Halo? We still don't know where Beast Halo is. He's been rumored to sign with Philadelphia Fusion's main roster, but we haven't heard anything about that. We've also had the question of where are you? Because Who Are You wasn't on that roster either, and we finally have an update on where Who Are You actually is. And he is actually right now on loan to Meta Athena, who is one of the Contenders Korea teams. So due to this, Who Are You will be with Meta Athena for the foreseeable future, which I do want to point out that he did debut on December 17th when Meta Athena faced Gen.G Esports.
How'd that go?
Not good for Meta Athena. Gen.G finally won a match. It was 4-0. I just thought that was funny that you have one of the Lunatic High alums going up against what's essentially Lunatic High, like, new, team at this point, because it is Gen.G, who is Seoul Dynasty, which was built from that core. But we do not have any details about this loan, but this is the first player loan that we have seen since the Overwatch League began. Who Are You was with Fusion Uni in the prior 2 seasons of Contenders North America, helped with the back-to-back championship wins for them. And I have to say, like, you and I have kind of been talking about this. Well, what exactly does this mean for a Fusion University? There's been some talks about maybe there's a couple of problems with Who Are You and the rest of the team, And basically right now he's just not with the team. So is this just a way for Philadelphia, or the Fusion University in this case, to still have their claws in him without actually making sure that, he signs elsewhere? Because it kind of feels that way.
Yes and no. So, like, the more I thought of this, the more I think it's likely that he, like, stayed in Korea. Like,
Okay.
he was probably over here, but he wanted to stay in Korea. And Fusion University was probably like, you know what? Instead of having to deal with the crazy ping that he's going to have playing for us, we think our team's good enough to win. And I mean, the team right now, they have a legit shot of actually winning. I don't think they're going to, but Fusion University is still a good team. They're top 3-4 in contenders. But by doing this, you still have your clause in who are you. And when he turns 18, they'll probably sign him straight away to the main roster. And then he gets moved back to the United States. Or they could sign him to a 2-way contract once he's 18, and he can play on both teams that way. Like, this is strictly probably something where who are you wanted to stay in Korea, didn't want to move back to the States while playing in contenders, where Philadelphia is waiting for him to turn 18. So it's just a waiting game at this point.
Moving on, we do have one more news bit out of the Overwatch League, and that is a new partnership between St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and Immortals, which also features the LA Valiant, because those two go hand in hand, because Immortals is the parent company. So they've committed to raise a total of $500,000 to support St. Jude's mission of finding cures to save the children. So what's going on is the LA Valiant, in the past, they had the B Valiant events, and they were kind of already partnering with St. Jude's, so they raised thousands of dollars during these events, not only with the B Valiant events, but the Live the Legacy playoff campaign that the Valiant had going. And I know they were doing a charity stream earlier today. That was like a 6-hour thing, and they had one of the Immortals Clash Royale League Team Champion players, I guess, was doing that. I don't really follow Clash Royale. I didn't even know there was a league for that. Apparently that's a thing. I do play the game. I don't even know it's that big into esports. But apparently it is. So I don't know how much they raised in that, but that was earlier this afternoon. And we are expecting to have some co-branded merchandise available between the LA Valiant and St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So I'm curious to see what exactly they're going to do with that. But at the end of the day, like, they've already had a strong connection, and they're looking to raise even more money over the course of the season. And there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to reach their goal and probably even surpass that.
Yeah, no, St. Jude Research actually is, without getting too much into it, is important to my family due to my nephew having numerous surgeries. He just had brain surgery 2 weeks ago, a year old.
I think you went robo.
Am I back?
Hold on. I don't know, it's freezing up. I can hear you clicking, but...
Okay. Am I back now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm back. So, no, Discord screwed up. So, St. Jude Research is actually something I personally donate to due to my nephew who has had brain surgery twice now in the past 3 months. And I also had prenatal surgery. And then a whole ordeal. So this is a very important. So I will be donating to this when the LA Valiant come out, start doing all this stuff. I also agree that they'll hit their 500,000 that they want year one. Because it's one of those things where all the other Overwatch League teams are going to donate money to the Valiant for this specific purpose. It's just something that you just see happening. You see it in all sorts of sports. I mean, you look at the Houston flooding. Every team donated to the Texans relief fund.
Right.
The Cincinnati Bengals player whose daughter was in chemotherapy, every NFL team donated to the Bengals for their, children's hospital research or whatever. So I can totally see every team actually donating to this, and they're going to hit their 500,000 week one or year one. I mean, so this is great. Anything to help the families, not have to pay bills. I've spent way too much time at a Ronald McDonald House. Dealing with all that stuff. So all that kind of stuff, anything to help with that. So when it comes out, I implore everyone listening to please don't.
Absolutely. So with that being said, this will lead into our main discussion for the week, which is going to be looking at our individual rankings and Podcast Network rankings for the original 12 Overwatch League teams. So, we technically already covered this on OWLN, so just like last week on H&D, we're actually going to go through our individual rankings, and then we'll let you know what the overall votes were for the official rankings for the preseason, and then maybe not on the network, Christmas special, but the one after that, whenever that will be, we will have our 1 through 20 for all of us. And then, of course, the network hosts. So I'm really curious to see how all the pieces are going to fall, because I know I knocked mine out already. I might change some things, but I really want to see how many expansion teams are going to be in the top 6 or 8, and how many are going to be in, the bottom 6.
Yeah, I mean, and, I have mine kind of worked out, and I might even change my initial 12. Where I have them listed, because I am very high on one specific team, original 12 team, and I'll get into it when we get into our rankings on why I'm so high on them.
All right, so Edinar, why don't you start us off? Let's both start with let's do the 12 through 7 slot each, and then we'll go on from there.
All right, do you want me to start at 7 and work my way down, or 12?
No, we're gonna work our way up.
Okay, so at 12, I was the only one on host to do this. I put the Boston Uprising, just because I am very down on Boston Uprising, just as an organization as a whole. I'm just down on that whole organization. I don't think it'll be good. So I put them at 12. Who'd you put?
For number 12, I put the Florida Mayhem. And while I agree, I still have a lot of question marks about Boston Uprising, specifically with their contenders DPS duo. Florida, across the board, not only in the Overwatch League, but at contenders, has this potential that they have had. And every single time, it's been completely floundered. And I just do not have the confidence that this organization as a whole is going to be able to right the ship.
No, I get that. I mean, and that goes 11. I'm the anti. I have those two flip-flop.
Right.
The Mayhem have good players. They have Saya Player. Saya Player is one of the best players in Overwatch League, as far as DPS goes. But I don't know how, as an organization, they can actually play. So I agree. They are one of the big mysteries coming in.
Right.
Because they are one of the original 12 teams that basically gutted the entire team. And so you don't know how they're going to do. So I had Florida Mayhem as 11, and your was
Boston Uprising. So I feel confident in the tank line for this team, and we've seen how important the tank duos are in the league. Don't had a pretty standout year in regards to his D.Va. Gamzu looked pretty good on Winston. Maybe not so good on Reinhardt, so that's kind of a question mark for this team. But moving on to your number 10 pick.
My number 10 pick, and I put them at 10, but I don't really know why. So I put the Valiant at 10.
Okay.
When they made the top 4, and all that changed is they got rid of one player. Really, they got rid of one player that matters.
Right.
They got rid of Numlocked. and Finzi, but no, they're backup players. Like they soon left the team. As soon that big of a like, I'll spoil this. You had the Valiant at 10 as well. But I ask you this: is soon such a dramatic game changer to drop them out of the top 4 to 10th?
This was the hardest team for me to kind of figure out where they're going to be. I felt like at the end of the day, while yes, they didn't make a huge splash during the offseason, everyone else around them kind of did. If you're looking at this team, I have full confidence in their tank and support line. That's definitely not a question mark across the board. For me, again, like it's going to come down to the DPS. Out of everything we've seen from KSF, that is their hit scan player, and everything that we have seen from him, at least at the Overwatch League level, has been not up to par. Agilities has the star player, qualities. I still feel like he hasn't reached his biggest potential as of yet, but he is a DPS player that this team can build around. And you have Bunny, who looked okay in spots, kind of shaky in others. You still have Kariv, who, if I'm going to put a DPS pairing together, I would put Agilities and Kariv together. I feel like that would put them in the best spot in regards to a DPS line, assuming that damage heroes are even in the game in the meta for the Overwatch League. But I feel like if they run that specific lineup, I would feel more confident in this team, and I would bump up where they are. But for now, so much of this is just going to boil down to what can KSF really do? Is he going to have similar performances? Is he just going to ride the bench? Will it be Agilities and Bunny or Agilities and Kariv? I don't know. So it's just one of those things where Space and Fate are going to be the workhorse for this team, and they will go as far as those two can take them. But if something's going to hold them back, it will be whoever that flex DPS is going to be, or that off DPS.
Yeah, it's one of those things with the Valiant. If GOATS is actually a thing in Season 2, this team is kind of set up for GOATS. It's set up very well for GOATS. So it will be interesting to see how they're the team where if you told me they took 10th, I wouldn't be shocked. If you told me they took 3rd, I'd be like, okay, they just continuing their winning from last year. So I agree with you. This was probably the hardest one for me to place. But to number 9, I have to apologize to Melarina a second time on this show.
Don't do that, because I'm going to have to do the same thing.
Is number... I am not sold on the Houston Outlaws. I don't think they're that good of a team. I do not like their support players. Their tanks are good. Their DPS is okay. I guess their lineup is strictly meta dependent. Like, if you have GOATS, they're not that good. I'm sorry. Like, you take out Dante and Lynxers are kind of stars on this team. But if you go GOATS, you're taking both of them probably out of the lineup. Well, then what's the point? You take Dante, even Jake and Lynxer out of the lineup, and you put in, the Raucous, Bonnie and Boink, and then Muma, Spree, and Cool Matt. Like, you have a GOATS lineup there, but I'm just not sold on this team. I don't think they didn't do well last year. They really didn't, outside of the beginning of the season. And they didn't do anything to really impress me to say that they're going to do great for Season 2. They're not a meta-dependent team because they sucked in one meta and then they sucked in the next meta. Like, how many metas do we need to be in to see them not do good in to prove a point here? So I don't know. Who's your number 9 totem?
Also the Houston Outlaws. So, before I even get into this, I do want to congratulate Linkser, because he did get engaged to his girlfriend. So that's a pretty big deal. For me, when I look at the Houston Outlaws, I've always been in the belief that in Season 1, their issues stemmed outside of just Tracer. A lot of Outlaws fans have this, and I'm gonna use this phrasing, and I'm sure people are gonna hate me for it, clouded judgment, that the only reason why we didn't do good is because there was a Tracer meta and we just did not have a Tracer player. I'm not buying into that BS. I'm sorry. You had... I like Cool Matt. I do. Muma's great. Cool Matt has kind of been on a decline. And D.Va, while maybe not as important as a Zarya player right now in this meta, and I'm not going to keep bringing up GOATs because, when Season 2 comes out, it's not going to be here. Whatever. But Cool Matt has been on decline. The support line across the board was not that good. You can just look at the positioning of Bonnie whenever he was on Mercy, constantly fall into self-destructs. Just that situational awareness and that lack of quality consistency from their Zenyatta play, it's just not there. If I'm not confident in multiple lines, I'm going to place you lower on the spectrum. And for me, the only thing that is going to kind of bring them up a bit is the fact that at least they picked up what they felt was the biggest hole in their game. Dante was one hell of a sign-in.
It was.
And to get him out of the shock, I'm not going to say that was a huge blow to San Francisco, which is going to show in my rankings, but Dante is in a position now where he's in a very good spot where he could play almost every map. But you have too many players on this roster who play off-meta heroes that are really only good at specific heroes. And when it comes to off-hero metas, that's really not a thing. It might be a case on a map or two, but even with the expanded map pool, how many of those are actually going to be seen play? At the end of the day, you've been a team who has been consistently mediocre, and I'm not afraid to use that word, and I feel like that's just going to continue. Do I think that eventually they might be able to get it right? Yeah, I feel like this squad is one of the more tight-knit groups in the league. It's just a matter of if they can do better consistently in more than one stage, because they looked good when Drake Rat was a thing very briefly in stage 1, and then it just slipped through their fingertips because their lack of consistency everywhere else kind of fell to shambles.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to throw more shade on the Houston Outlaws other than you can have the best 1v1 Widowmaker, but Widowmaker has to be relevant for him to use that skill. Linkser, awesome DPS. Right now, with what we're seeing, he's just not out there. He's just not a player. So, all right, move on to the next one. I'm going with, at number 8, Shanghai Dragons. In all honesty, the only reason I'm putting them at 8 is because, plain and simple, I don't know much about this team.
Okay.
And not a lot of people do. It's the, what is it, Kangdu Panthera, their old team. That old team basically just all signed to Shanghai Dragons.
Not all of them, but a good portion of them.
Yeah, it's outside of the mayhem. This is to change their team, and by when I say the most to change their team, they got 7 new players. And they're now a South Korean and 1 Chinese player. for Shanghai, and I don't know how they're gonna do, but this is another one of those teams, kind of like the Valiant, that if they finished at the bottom, I wouldn't be surprised. If they finished near the top, I wouldn't be surprised. We just don't know at this point. They could be this year's, New York Excelsior. Who knows? But I'm slotting them in at 8, just because that's what I'm doing.
Right.
What about you?
We do agree on quite a few of these upcoming picks. So at number 8, we both do have Shanghai Dragons, or in this case, Chengdu Dranthera. I'm never not going to call them that because that's basically what they are. Or you could, kind of move things around however you want to kind of fit your needs. But that's what I'm going to go with. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, KDP, this has been an organization that has scouted the best talent, I would say, consistently. They've been fully poached in both Overwatch League off seasons. That might change because KDP didn't do as well in this current season, but again, that was after a whole nother, restructure, all of that good stuff. And I feel like they kept the best parts of their Season 1 roster. Do I feel like they did enough to gut the roster? I think so. They felt like their tank line wasn't that big of an issue. And across the board, their improvements are pretty good. But you also kind of run into the risk of how well is this team going to coordinate with one another when this KDP core is going to be playing alongside the Season 1 core of the Shanghai Dragons? That remains to be seen. But this is a team that, for KDP, were the runner-ups in Contenders Korea last season. They did fall in an epic 8-map series to Runaway, who are now, plus Repel, the Vancouver Titans. So this is one of those teams where, if I'm looking at one of the, bottom, 5 or 4 teams, at least in our rankings, that is a playoff contender, Shanghai would probably be at the top of that list. So that one's going to be a team to watch. It's not going to be another 0-28 season. They might not get their first win against the Spark, but it will be coming a lot sooner than people might think. I feel like a lot of people are just going to look at it and be like, oh, Shanghai went 0-40. And then they're just going to write Shanghai off again.
Yep.
And it's going to bite them in the ass. But moving on to number 7, you and I both agreed this is where we had the Dallas Fuel. So I feel like for me, the one thing that is holding Dallas back in regards to where I place him was I feel very confident in the DPS lines in a lot of these other teams, and also the support lines. We still don't know what role Zachary is going to be on this team. We don't know how Effect's mindset is going to be, or whether or not he's going to be over-emotional. That's definitely something to bring up, because it did happen in Season 1. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. Hopefully the time off and time back in Korea is going to bring him back up to where he was at, because Effect really was the backbone of that DPS core. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of, what are they going to do about these hit scan DPS? What are they going to do about the projectile DPS? I felt like when they were running AKM in a lot of these situations, whether it was with the AKM Blade Genji or the Soldier 76 one-trick, which forced Harry Hook into playing Mercy, basically, that was when the Fuel looked their absolute worst, because Mickey was torn between who to protect. Hopefully they shore up the compositions that they want to run. But all in all, this team looks pretty good. And if the Stage 4 improvement is any indicator of how good this team can be in the future, I would not be surprised to see them make more than one run in the stage playoffs.
Yeah, like you said, I love the tank line for the Dallas Fuel. Mm-hmm. I love RCK and OGE. I actually really like the support line. I love the support of Harry Hook on Co-Closure. The question mark around this whole team is going to be how they handle DPS, or whatever DPS is actually available. Are you going to go Zachary effect? Are you going to go Taimu? Are you going to go AKM? Like, what are you going to do? What's the comps going to be? I mean, you almost have to think Zachary is going to be on this team in the starting lineup every week, and you would think Effect will be there too if his mental stability is going to be there. Like you said, that is a big question mark. The team is a better team now than what we saw in season 1. I think that's kind of obvious to everyone. They're building more of an actual team. The reason I actually put Dallas Fuel at 7 instead of lower, though, is for one reason only, and that is their coaching staff.
Right.
They, hands down, I think, have the best coaching staff in Overwatch. I mean, you look at Arrow, who takes Philadelphia Fusion, or Fusion University, to, contenders championships, gets hired away by the Dallas Fuel, when Dallas Fuel was the dumpster fires, the laughing stock, just above Shanghai, but I think a little bit below Mayhem, because Mayhem weren't that great, but there were such high expectations. Like, Dallas Fuel was the bottom of the bottom. And he comes back and he's like, nope, we're going to stage 4, like, playoffs. Like, and that was purely an error. Like, I'm not giving credit to any of the players in that aspect. I'm giving all the credit to Arrow. So Arrow, however Arrow performs this year in coaching this team and the substitutions and the comps that they run, is going to rest solely on Arrow, and I think Arrow's going to do well. There's still a lot of question marks with this roster. I do not like Effect. Not that I don't like Effect. I think Effect is a good DPS, but I think mentally and stability-wise, he's bad for the team. Just because you're going to go into what effect am I going to get? Am I going to get the overly emotional effect we had in season 1, or are we going to get dominant effect that we had in season 1? You just don't know.
Or are you going to get the piss off effect when the panelists say that they're going to pick Shanghai Dragons over the Deadless Fuel, and then he just nopes right out and just takes control of the entire game.
Yeah, exactly. Like, effect is probably on the same level as XQC, as up and down emotional swings. Like, this team is going to be hit or miss, one way or the other. But I think that falls all on Arrow's head at this point.
Right. So moving on, we have a lot of fluctuation here in our 4 through 6. But what I will say is the teams involved are the Seoul Dynasty, Philadelphia Fusion, and the San Francisco Shock. So going from 6 to 4, I have Seoul Dynasty, San Francisco Shock in the 5 slot, with Philadelphia Fusion being the 4th. What do you have in your 6 through 4, Ed?
So at 6, I have the San Francisco Deep Shock. And then in 5, I have the Fusion. And 4, I have the Seoul Dynasty. How do I have the Seoul Dynasty ahead of you?
Okay, so there's one particular reason why I have the Dynasty at 6, and that is based off of everything I've heard about who is scrimming for the Seoul Dynasty.
Okay, who's scrimming for the Seoul Dynasty?
Well, I will tell you who's not scrimming for the Seoul Dynasty. 1, Ryu Jae-han, and 2, Fisher.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not worried about Fisher. I don't know. I don't see that as being a huge deal. I don't know.
But you feel more confident that the Dynasty are a better team than the Fusion, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Seoul Dynasty, so when I talked a little bit earlier about how a team who I actually underrated in my mind that I'm super high on and I might move, that is the Seoul Dynasty.
Okay.
I just keep going back to their roster and I keep falling more in love with the Seoul Dynasty. Like, you get the best tank in Season 1. You get Ryuji Hong, who was as great a player as Ryuji Hong was. The meta last season played 100% against everything he does. What is Ryuji Hong known for? Ridiculous Ana play. Well, Ana is 100% in the meta right now. Or can be 100% in the meta right now. She is a very strong healer. So you introduce Ryuji Hong on his best support player when he was considered last season, at least at the start, and even during the season by some fellow pro players as the best support in the game. On his best character, you get Fissure in there, and then you put him up with Fleta and Munchkin, and then you're like, oh, we're going to throw in Zunba and Toby, and then, I mean, I don't know much about Michelle and Marvel, like Jexy or Fitz, but like the starting six they have is a scary starting six. I can easily see them finishing 1-2 in the Overwatch League Season 2.
What I will say, if I'm looking at anything with Ryuji Hong, let's say he's not playing Ana. If he's on Zenyatta duty, again, he needs to turn up the aggression a little bit because we're in like that Fragger Zenyatta Overwatch League at this point. He was playing way too passive. He was prioritizing healing over everything else. And that's good for like a teammate, right? But it wasn't necessarily what they needed. And if this is going to be a more aggressive Seoul Dynasty team in Season 2, a lot of that is going to be put on him to be able to follow through and to, work alongside Fissure, make sure he's always getting the Discord orb on the Reinhardt so they could deal with that, or the Brigitte, depending on how they want to do their, target prioritization, things like that. But I'm really curious as a soulmate to see how the Dynasty does. If it's a case of Fissure not starting, though, I really don't know what to think right now. So I'm gonna hold off and see what they do in the show match, so we might have a better idea of what we might expect.
All right, we both know that show match is a shit show.
They should dominate that. If it's not like a clean sweep, I will be disappointed.
True. But, I mean, you think about it, when you have Ryuji Hong, his Ana, and then you can get Toby on his main, which is, if memory serves me correct, is Lucio.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get a good Lucio-Ana comp on your two supports, on their two best characters, and Lucio and Ana are not a bad pairing together, in my mind.
Right.
They are not bad. You get a good duo support on their main characters, that's huge. And then, they could be scary. They really could be scary. So, I don't know. I'm also quite interested on your San Francisco Shock because you have probably been one of the most vocal anti-Shock people.
Anti-Shock people. Okay, so when I look at these rankings, I will tell you that kind of across the board, Shock are at average 6.6 for the rank, which would put him 7th overall in our rankings. I actually had him higher than everyone at the 5 slot. So when I look at the Shock, I also kind of look at what Energy has done as an organization. This is an esports organization that basically went from being the stream team, who would never really qualify for any sort of playoffs, always have early exits in the weekly tournaments, to being an academy team, have basically turned things around. And while some of their players that got signed to Overwatch League maybe have not stood out amongst the pack, this has been course correction since Energy kind of like got brought back into contenders. And I feel like when you look at his coaching staff, I'm a big fan of Krusty. I thought he did really good work with Boston Uprising in Season 1. And he was a major component of just that synergy with the dive that Boston Uprising had. And when it comes to the DPS line, which I know has a lot going on there, as does Dallas Fuel, I really like the pieces that they have in play here. I feel like Rascal was an absolute monster call-up from Energy Esports. Architect was very consistent in Season 1. I wouldn't say, like, he was on par with, like, Saya Player, but, like, he was one of those players that would have a similar type impact, but just on a better team. So, it might not have been as flashy, but you knew what you were going to get from him every time he was in that starting lineup. The only thing that I'm concerned about is where Sinatraa is going to fit into this. I hope that they're going to retool Sinatra's hero pool to kind of fit the needs of the meta. Because right now, I probably would not start him as one of the main DPS on that team. But pretty much all the pieces around the team, I'm feeling less conflicted with as opposed to all the other teams that I have ranked lower than the Shock.
Yeah, I guess the only reason that I'm the Shock is you were, and I think a lot of people probably feel the same way, is the Shock. I mean, when you think about the team from last year, what was their biggest strength or the most depth they had? Well, that was at DPS, because you had Architect, you had Baby Bay, you had Sinatraa, and Dante. Yeah, Dante was there last year. Well, they got rid of Dante, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. They had a surplus, and then they get a bigger surplus. Like, you introduced, who'd they get? Striker. They call up Rascal to go along with, Sinatraa, Architect, Baby Bay. So you got 5 DPS that are all startable in a meta that doesn't require DPS. So, like you said, what are they going to do Sinatraa? Are they going to put him on Zarya? Are they going to put him on Reinhardt? Are they going to start flexing him to other positions? You just don't know. They loaded up on one position, left the tank and support line kind of be, because it was pretty decent for them last year. I mean, you had Moth, and then you had Sleepy on support, which is good, and then you had Nevix and Super on the tank line, Smurf, and that was all fine and dandy. But did they truly improve all that much? I don't think they did.
Okay.
Experience-wise, yes. Skill-wise, I don't know if they did.
I feel like at the end of the day, when it comes to DPS duos, when you look at Striker and Architect, you're hard-pressed to really find a better duo. That's not to say, like, there aren't other pairings out there, which, honestly, like, when we look at the top of our rankings, the top, 4 teams have absolute insane duos on the DPS line that you feel like are going to play the bulk of the games.
Yes.
But I really feel like when it comes to the Shock last season, we didn't see them reach that potential. They've added improvements, and I don't think it's going to be a tracerless meta. So picking up Striker was absolutely massive, and it gets him out of the hellhole that was the Boston Uprising, and I will absolutely favor playing Striker over Sinatraa 365 days of the year. Come at me, whatever. But I really feel like when it comes to turnaround teams that might have been more middle of the pack, this is going to be the team that's going to have the biggest jump from Season 1 to Season 2. It's just a matter of how far is that tank line going to take them, because that's really the downfall that the Shock had last year for me, was the Reinhardt play. But who knows, maybe Sinatraa will end up starting over Super in that case, I don't know. But when it comes to the top 3 teams, you and I were all in agreeance, and we had the LA Gladiators at number 3. Mm-hmm. We had the New York Excelsior at number 2, and everyone had the London Spitfire at number 1. So, across the board, really not too many surprises there. And a lot of people are feeling pretty good about the LA Gladiators going into this season, despite losing Fisher. But they made some pretty big sign-ins at a lot of different positions. So I want to get your thoughts on where you feel the Gladiators are as a team going into Season 2, as, we both have them at that 3 slot.
Yeah, no, I love the Gladiators right now. I actually for me, it was a coin flip between New York and the Gladiators for the number 2 position. Spitfire, I put at number 1 because you know what? They won the championship. If you win on top, you're going to stay on top until you lose, and they haven't lost. But the things that the Gladiators did in the offseason, I think they probably got the best. Like, if you were to give offseason rankings on like who did the best and who signed the best, the Gladiators would win. When you Roar, you get Panker on a 2-way, and then you get Decay and Ripa. Like, you have 4 people that you signed that could start for you, may not start for you. I mean, 2 of them probably will, but like it's not mandatory that these players start. Like, the depth of your team is just insane at this point. Like, when we talk about DPS duos, you're just like, well, are we going to sit hydration for Decay? You're not going to sit Surefour? Like, what are you going to do in that situation? Like, they have just a plethora of DPS characters on that team. I mean, even tank-wise, they have a plethora. I mean, you have Roar and Panker as your 2 main tanks, and you could probably interchange them based on map. And then you look at your off tank, and then you're like, oh, I have Bishu, and then I have Void. 2 good off tanks. And then they had Shaz and Big Goose, who, the Finnish sensations, and then you get Ripa, the Finnish trifecta, and all are good support players. Like, I don't feel that the Gladiators actually have a weakness on the team. The only thing being they I don't know, their overall skill level may not be as high as so I don't know. What about you?
I'm a huge fan of all the signings that they made this offseason, and I would say out of all of the teams, they did have the biggest offseason sign-ins. I feel like outside of that, Dynasty probably had the biggest impact in regards to the original 12, maybe followed by New York Excelsior, but that's also like a huge ordeal of where is everyone going to fit on that lineup, or is someone going to be trade bait mid-season? We don't know. But to quickly go over where the entire podcast network as a whole went with our rankings, and our running, I'll start out with the 12 through 7, and then you can read the 6th slot through the 1st. So coming in at number 12, we have the Florida Mayhem. At 11, we have Boston Uprising. In 10th, we have Los Angeles Valiant. 9th being Houston Outlaws. 8th, Shanghai Dragons. And in that 7th slot, we have the San Francisco Shock.
Yep. And then at 6, we have the Dallas Fuel. In 5, we have the Seoul Dynasty. In 4, we have the Fusion. 3, we have the Gladiators. 2, New York Excelsior. And then 1, unanimously, we have the London Spitfire. So we were both pretty close on all this, except you don't like the Seoul Dynasty as much as I do.
So when we look at the average rankings, the 6 and 7 slot were neck and neck, as well as the 8th and 9th slot. So just to quickly go over that, we had the Fuel, who had an average rank of 6.4. The Shock were 6.6. And then the Dragons and Outlaws also had a 0.2 differential. Dragons were 8.4, Outlaws 8.6. So I thought that was very peculiar. So it kind of gives you an idea of where we feel like, some of the neck-and-neck battles are in regards to some of these teams. We were going to touch up on some storylines or maybe surprise teams to keep an eye on, but that in itself could really be saved for another night for a main discussion, because when it comes to storylines, you could easily talk at least 2 or 3 storylines for literally every team in the Overwatch League. So we're going to go ahead and save that. So I know we're nearing that 2-hour mark, so let's close out the show for tonight. If you guys want to help us out, one of the best ways to do that is to leave us a review over on iTunes. Any sort of feedback or constructive criticism is always welcome. just because that will offer us some insight on how we can make for a better listening experience and podcast for you guys. And we did get 3 new reviews, and we're going to read all of them. So we'll kind of like split this up. So our first one was a 5-star review from Anfernes, who says, I work overnights, and unfortunately I can't attend the Twitch live show, and I love how much content there is, especially with the other podcasts you guys have. I personally enjoy the 1.5 to 2 hour podcast because it just kills time when I'm working. I was wondering how hard it would be to feature an Overwatch fan that's been keeping up with contenders, Overwatch League, and everything Overwatch to be on the show with you guys for talks, possible debates, and whatnot. So you work overnights. I don't know what time zone you are per se, but if there's a night that you're free, Wednesday nights, we do record at 5 p.m. Pacific time, usually less than 2 hours. It's really not that hard to be a guest on a show. We just typically have been doing a 2-man show for a while, but we are always open to bringing people on the show. So Anfernes, like if you want to talk, feel free to send us an email or a direct message over on Twitter, or you can message me on my personal Twitter, at TimelyDrunkCTR, and we can just go from there. But Ed, we also got another 5-star review, so why don't you go ahead and read that one?
Okay, so that one is from Random Raider Person. So, have just recently started listening to podcasts for the past. Personally, I love the meta breakdown and analysis of new patches. Hosts show great synergy together and also show great passion for the game and have a lot of experience that shows in their talks about the Overwatch League and the players. This podcast has a very relaxed and sometimes comedic atmosphere to it, yet also has a clear-cut discussion base that naturally flows from one topic into another. That would be Totem reining me in. Let's just get that straight. Yeah. And then he goes on, my favorite parts of the podcast are definitely predictions on patch changes or Overwatch League games will play out. This allows the host to utilize their expertise on the game to analyze the impacts that each of the changes will make. Overall, I recommend this podcast to anyone who is interested in the Overwatch League or invested in learning about any Overwatch news or patch analysis. So Random Raider Person, thank you very much for that review. That's very well in depth.
And I will say, expertise? Question mark?
Oh, I have expertise, damn it.
Okay. I mean, okay, you can be on your high horse. Moving on, we also did get a 5-star review from Matthew820, who says, love the show, listen to it whenever I'm at school, and can't read the patch notes, so thank you for helping me with that. It seems like a lot of people like our patch discussions.
I guess so.
I've got news for you guys. That's going nowhere.
Yeah, no, after reading these reviews, I vote we cut them out.
Completely. Like, we're done. That's it. We're moving on. We're moving on.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. We cover it technically twice, because everything that goes on to PTR just gets shipped to live without any changes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you miss it once, there's always we'll get back around. That's all you need to do. But anyways, we do also have Overwatch Recall, where you can find a listing of several Overwatch League, and Path to Pro podcasts out there on our website. And we are doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday releases in our interview series where I talk to other Overwatch content creators. So if you're wondering, hey Totem, I produce whatever, like podcasts, if you stream Overwatch, if you have a YouTube channel that focuses on Overwatch, how can I be on Overwatch Recall? Well, all you have to do is tweet me or slide into the DMs at OW Recall, and we will get something scheduled. So I know so far this week, I interviewed Melkari from On The Point, which is an Overwatch talk show that released on Monday. Earlier today, I released the interview with Austin Hanlon, who is an esports writer for Overwatch Score, so be sure to check that one out. And then I will be talking to Overtakes, who is an Overwatch-themed YouTube channel, and I'll be doing that interview tomorrow night to be released on Friday night, so be sure to check that out. And of course, pay attention to the Weekly Recall, which is released every Sunday night, which shows, whatever number of podcast episodes, 20, 25, who knows? That might drastically change next week and the week after. We'll just have to wait and see. But that's posted every Sunday night. But Ed, there are so many ways where our viewers and listeners can reach us, so why don't you let them know how they can do that?
All right. Well, you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter at @HNDOverwatch. We do have a website, and that is owlnshow.com. We also are streaming presently live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLNshow. We are a Twitch affiliate, so you can support the show by subscribing to our Twitch channel and unlock our network of emoticons. So thanks again to everyone who's been watching our shows live, interacting with the chat. If you'd like to catch us live, we broadcast 2 nights a week at minimum. Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, we have Overwatch League Network. Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, we have this show, Heroes Never Die. And then host streams will be held on Thursdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. And I repeat that every week, and I always ask Totem when he's streaming on Thursdays. So fail on my part. Discord, you can reach us on Discord at discord.me/OWShow. And then we have a YouTube channel, youtube.com. League Network, where you can catch any videos Spider puts up, Totem, any interviews Totem has on the OWL Recall will usually be up there. So go check that out. And then me personally, Edinar, Twitter at Edinar Overwatch. And then Totem, where can they reach you on Twitter?
Well, I'm on Twitter at TumbledrunkCTR. And guys, again, thank you so much for hanging out tonight and listening to Heroes Never Die. Again, this has been episode number 140. I am your host, TumbleDrunk, joined, as always, by my co-host, Edinar. And
Merry Christmas.
We don't currently know what our schedule will be for the next 2 weeks, just due to the holiday season. There's a good chance that it might be some off-kilter, silliness in regards to a Christmas special on both of the feeds. So as soon as we figure it out, we will let you guys know. But we do have something planned for Christmas week, and that will most likely be released on Christmas Eve on Monday on both the OWLN feed and the H&D feed. After that, it's still up in the air. But as soon as I know, you guys will know. But for now, guys, we hope you have a wonderful holiday, Merry Christmas, and we will see you guys back at some point with maybe a couple changes. Who knows? We might shake things up just a little bit.
Just a little.
Just a little. Not a lot, but a little. Have
just
a good
a wee
night.
bit. Merry Christmas.
Thank you for listening to Heroes Never Die. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HNDOverwatch and join us on Discord at discord.me/OWLNshow.